Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield coming at you again with, as always, his big brother Rich. Rich, how are you tonight?
I am doing just wonderful.
That's good. That's good. I mean,
only one thing could make me more wonderful
is the Steelers were still playing.
That's correct.
Yeah, we got to know that. I mean, we all know this. We know this. So it's just one of those things that it's just kind of how it goes. So, right now there are 30 teams that aren't playing.
Correct.
Whether they finished so bad that they're drafting at the top of the 2021 NFL draft, or whether they were like almost half of the playoff teams one and done the first week. Because remember, that happened to 6 of the 14 teams. So there's a lot of company with our misery as it came with Steelers fans. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk we might talk some Super Bowl next week about that leading up in there. We're better. We're the better brother combo than Mario and Luigi, and all that good stuff. So
Right.
Let's get into stuff now. What we're going to talk about tonight, I have to admit, it was actually covered a little bit last week with Michael and Jeffrey on their Wednesday night show, which suddenly the name of their show in the off season is escaping me. I can't remember. It's not Know Your Enemy anymore. And I can't remember what it was. So, but that doesn't matter. But they were talking about this, but we're still going to bring it this week because last week we told you we would. So we're going to cover the topic of all the free agents with the Steelers. Because last week we talked about the players going into basically the last year of their deal, not on rookie contracts, things of that sort. What should the Steelers do? Should they retain, meaning just keep them with their same deal? Should they extend them, or should they release them? And that's what we did last week. We dove into that. That was a very big, interesting topic. I had a series of articles on the website about that. And it's funny, the first one, people were like, "What are you writing this for?" I'm like, read the story. It's a series. All those guys fit into one of three categories. They're either in the quote unquote uncuttable category because it costs more on the salary cap to actually release them. That was the first article. And people were like, why do we care? Well, they fit in this category. Then the next category is you can release them, but their dead money was more than what you would save. And then you could release them and you would actually have more of a savings than what the dead money would be. And did that for all the players on the roster that counted for $1.5 million towards the salary cap or more. And any idea how many players that ended up being?
I don't know.
Off the top of your head? It was 16. It was 17. And then we had
I knew that was 17, then McDonald retired.
Yes, and then Vance McDonald retired. So that was that news. So that he moved on. So that cut it from 17 to 16 right then. And then just going to look at it and just kind of to sum this up a little bit as we introduce what we're going to be talking about this week before we get into some of the other news. And that is, it's not that the Steelers don't have options in the offseason with what to do with the salary cap and what to do with their players and everything else. They do. They're not the best options. They're going to have to make a lot of hard decisions. They just have to make the decisions.
Right. They have to make decisions. They have to do some things to free up space and things like that. It is really a big, game of Tetris.
Yes, that's really what it is. So they have to decide what they're going to do. So it could be that, like I said this last year before the season started, 2020 was the year of the restructure. 2021 is the year of the extension. That's what it really is going to come down to. Lots of extensions to lower these cap hits. And everyone, I mean, I saw some people ripping on Ben Roethlisberger about about, oh, he, costed the Steelers this much money at this point in the career. They're the ones who decided to kick like an extra, I can't even remember. I should have looked up the number because I reported on it last year, 10 or 12 million from last year to this year on the salary cap. The Steelers chose to do that. That it didn't cost Ben Roethlisberger a dime. It didn't save Ben Roethlisberger a dime. Instead of getting his checks each week, he was playing for the minimum, and it was given to him as a signing bonus, which allowed them to kick more of it to this coming year. So you don't, you could say you didn't like what he signed as his extension a couple years ago. It's $10 million more, all because the Steelers chose to go that route last season.
Yep.
So they got to have a plan. They've got to have a plan. They've got to have a plan with BTR. They've got to have a plan with many of these other players that they have that are aging. They've got to decide, can they move on? Are they going to move on from these guys? Or are they going to extend these guys? Or there's going to be some that they probably just play out and say that's just the best way to do it. So we could debate it all we want to. We talked about it last week, but it's just going to be whatever they decide to do, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say there?
No, we covered with that what their options kind of are. We covered what we thought we would maybe do, but they've got tough decisions to make.
Yeah, and we could say, well, you could do this and do this, and then because what they decide is going to depend everything with what they can do with their own free agents.
Correct. We could sit here and come up with something. Actually, we could ask the Steelers front office, and they could come up with something, and then it doesn't actually even work out the way they think they want it to go out. There's so many different ways this could play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and the thing is, you're like, oh, well, why is it so bad here at the end? And it's all these contracts going into the last year because the Steelers chose to do it that way last season. They chose to free up the money and to be able to do the things that they did. They were able to sign Cam Hayward. They brought in Ebron. They did all those other things, all by keeping their players, but restructuring the way they did. Now, for those of you who say, well, just restructure again. You can't restructure somebody with 1 year left on their deal. What a restructure does, for example, they could restructure Cam Hayward and save some money. I'd have to look at the exact numbers. Cam Hayward has multiple years left on his deal, and he has a base salary this year. The way it works is he has X amount of money coming towards him. I mean, I can even tell you real quick exactly what it is. He has, let's see, because he counts this year $14.55 million against the salary cap. Okay. His prorated bonus, which would basically be dead money of that, is just over $4 million. He's due a base salary of $4.5 million, and he's due a roster bonus of $6 million. That means that's $10.5 million of Cam Hayward, right? That he would be paid next year. The Steelers could offer to give him $9 million of that because roughly because the minimum salary for him is over. It's not $1.5 million, but it's over $1 million. Last year it was $1.05 million, I think it was, but it goes up a little bit every year. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is this year. So in other words, all but just over $1 million of that, they could decide to just pay him up front. Rather than pay him over the season, they just pay him up front, and then they're allowed to stretch that out over all the years remaining on his contract, which the prorated bonus, like right now for this year, is $4 million. That means that money's going to go up next year. But then the problem is next year it's an even bigger cap hit because his base salary and bonuses and stuff like that is a high number again. You can keep doing it, but eventually when you keep kicking it so far down the road, all that money comes due, which is kind of what's going on with Ben Roethlisberger right now. So, wow, we just went into that to explain all that to say,
there was no we about that. Okay, let's get something straight.
Yeah,
that was you, not we.
Well, someone had mentioned in the live chat about a restructure for some of these guys. You can only restructure now, and I think I know what you meant. You meant an extension. So guys with 1 year left, you got extension. We're going to focus this week on guys with no years left. who can you try to sign? Who do you have to let go? What's going to have to take? Before we do that, things of, news that we have. Okay. Everyone was up in arms about the Steelers adding another quarterback to the roster. That was since our last show, correct? I'm pretty sure it was. Or was it?
No.
Or did we talk about that last week?
We talked about that last week.
Okay, so we talked about that last week. But that's
because I talked about it's zero risk.
Yes.
We talked about that.
Okay. So we talked about that, but the thing that came out today was the salary. Yeah, it's a 1-year deal for like $800,000, which is right around, I think, what it would be, maybe slightly more than what would be the minimum deal. So it's really not any kind of, that's right around what you'd be looking at for someone coming in their third year. So it's basically a minimum deal. That's a futures contract. That's at this, almost anyone would be signing. So that's it. Steelers hired their offensive coordinator and a tight end coach. They hired the tight end coach earlier in the day from the offensive coordinator, but for all we know, that offensive coordinator had really been, it had been reported for a long time that he was the front runner. They just finally made it official that it was Matt Canada. The other question that got answered.
Hey, something there. I will say this. Well, because of the guys the Steelers brought in to also interview for that position, had any of them made it impossible to hire back Canada, I believe it would have been one of those other people.
Yeah. Yeah. So
don't act like those other folks didn't have an opportunity. They had an opportunity.
And you kind of bring them in to get to know them, knowing that if you hire Canada, they are also a couple people that would possibly maybe even be interested in the Steelers quarterback coach position.
Yep.
And now, because I wanted to say that report came out yesterday, right after the hire. I'm pretty sure it was Jerry Duloc who, when Jerry says it, I put a lot of credence into things that he says. And he said the Steelers aren't doing what they did last time, which is good because that was a mistake when they promoted their quarterbacks coach and then didn't hire another one. So they're looking for a quarterback coach. They had someone that they're speaking to. There's no requirement with having to interview people and stuff like that for this position. I don't know if you saw the article today that I wrote. I had to put the first line in there because the one person they're talking to is Mike Sullivan. And I said, no, he's not switching from hockey to football. We're not talking about the current Pittsburgh Penguins head coach.
Correct. We
are talking about Mike Sullivan, who was a longtime assistant with the New York Giants, 2 Super Bowls. Why is it that the progression kind of goes like wide receiver coach to quarterback coach to coordinator? I've seen a lot of people make that progression. Randy Land made that progression. He was wide receivers, then quarterbacks, then yeah.
I think it's just about gaining more experience.
Yeah,
I really do.
Which then makes me wonder why in the world would you not have a quarterbacks coach for a couple years when that seems to be a stepping stone from other places. That's still kind of crazy.
Okay,
but the whole notion of these other guys that you brought in to interview for offensive coordinator, would they possibly be interested in the quarterback's coach? You're like, that's crazy. Why would any of those guys want to do that? Not that crazy. 2 years ago, Steelers offensive line coach, Mike Munchak, interviews for the head coaching job in Denver. Doesn't get it. And they hire him as the offensive line coach.
Yeah.
So we've witnessed it firsthand. So
crazier things have happened.
Yeah. So either one of the other candidates they interviewed for the offensive coordinator, I would be satisfied with this quarterback coach. Some people are basically saying a lot of times quarterback coach is basically your assistant offensive coordinator. Depends on how you do things. So that's some interesting stuff. Anything else? I got one more thing to cover before we jump into stuff, unless you have something you would like to talk about.
Oh, was that for me?
Yeah, that was
Sorry.
for you.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Cover what you want to cover, and let's dive in.
So the question is, because I know you don't do a lot on social media, so I don't know if you know much about this story. Do you know the story about the report of TJ Watt's exit interview?
No.
Oh man, you've missed a lot. Okay, because this came out, I think it was yesterday, last night, that because it was reported on the radio show. I'm pretty sure it was it 105.9 that's the X? Because it wasn't 93.7, because so that's another story coming. But it was Mark Madden who covers Pittsburgh sports.
Okay.
A lot of people know is very, very that's how do you describe Mark Madden? I don't know. Very abrasive, maybe. But he reported that he had from a source inside the Steelers that TJ Watt did not show up to his exit interview and told them to, quote, mail my stuff to Wisconsin, except he didn't say stuff. That was the quote. And then that was brought out, and TJ Watt himself responds to it. He's like, well, I can tell you that source wasn't Coach Tomlin, Coach Butler, or Kevin Colbert, because they were all there for my exit interview. Now, before even more came out.
Or TJ Watt.
Yeah, or TJ Watt.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after TJ Watt says that, Madden comes back and says, I stand by my story. Now, if Madden would have been there, I would have understood it. But he's saying that he heard from somebody else that he considers a good, a reliable source for him, that he heard from them that this happened. So he's saying he heard from someone else who said this happened, and he heard from TJ Watt that said it didn't happen. And he's saying, I believe that other person. Now, if I'll be honest with you, if Madden said he witnessed it himself, it would be a whole different story. So that was interesting. Now, then I was talking with one Jefferson Hartman about this, and I'm like, the Steelers facility was closed down the day after their loss because of the Ebron situation. For all you know, I'm like, were they doing these interviews virtually? These exit interviews virtually because the facility was closed? And maybe TJ Watt was saying, hey, I'm heading out of town. I'll do my interview. Oh, okay. Yeah. Here, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, what do you want to do? I'll just send my stuff to Wisconsin. I can't, I'm not going to be sticking around until everything opens up. Who knows when it's going to open? It could have been a situation like that, but apparently it wasn't, because it was also reported on 93.7 The Fan. Mark Caboli of The Athletic came on and said that his sources said that TJ Watt indeed did his exit interview, and it was in person. Now you've heard the whole story. Does it even really matter? Is what I'm going to ask you. What are your thoughts? Do you think that's a big deal or a big story or not?
Other than the fact that TJ Watt had his exit interview, and he'll probably never, ever give an interview to Mark Madden, that's really all that comes out of it.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, TJ Watt's exit interview, 15 sacks. Good job. Yep. You're in the run for Defensive Player of the Year. Yep.
Good job.
Good job. We'll be talking to you, seeing how we can work the money, get ready for that 5th-year deal, or your option you got. Hey, if we can work something out, we'll be in contact.
Coming back for $10.5 billion, but we'll see what we can work on here in the off season.
Yeah, let us get some other stuff figured out, and we'll see if we can get an extension this year rather than next year.
Thank you for your service.
Yep. See ya. Kind of like they said, how long, when they talk about how long the discussion lasts when they're talking about Hall of Fame candidates. Yeah, that's kind of like how long does an exit interview last when you're talking about some of these players. So that was kind of interesting to be in the news, but I know Jeff Hartman's talking about it some more tomorrow morning. I shared so much of it because you hadn't heard it, and I love that. But I'm just reporting on that's what it was. It's really like Occam's Ox says right here, no story. It's not a story. Even if he was upset about everything and said, send my stuff to Wisconsin, I'll zoom you from there. It's still nothing. It's still nothing.
No. Do you know what the story boils down to?
Yeah.
is Mark Madden trying to make headlines for Mark Madden. He's trying to, get himself hyped up.
Yeah.
So he reports on this, and then when TJ Watt says, no, it didn't go that way himself, and he's like, well, I'm sticking by my source. This is all about, Mark Madden wanting some headlines.
Well,
that's
and
what it is.
He always is all over Juju and everything he does. So if he doesn't have, and we're going to talk about this very soon, if he doesn't have Juju to talk about these kind of things, if there's not going to be any more Juju, he already, took a shot at Claypool with this, with this stuff about the Browns afterwards, which I think was kind of, one, blown out of proportion, and two, still not very good, kind of ill-advised. Yeah. But, they're like, so what's Madden doing? He needs better ratings, so now he's going to go pick on the biggest superstar he can find. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he does have a legit source that they got it wrong. They swear it's right to him, but really they weren't. But I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me.
No, you know what I care
right
about?
Or not, it's not a big deal.
You know what I care about right now? Mm-hmm. Our free agents that we still have to sign. So let's keep the show moving. Let's roll.
Exactly. So what we're going to do here is the Steelers have 19 unrestricted free agents, 2 restricted free agents, and 3 exclusive right free agents for next year. What we're going to do before our first break, we're going to hit the exclusive rights and the restricted ones. Yep. Then we'll take our 5-second break for you guys here on YouTube, and then we'll come back, do the others, and hopefully at the end we'll have some time that maybe we can even do some questions. So you ready to do this? You ready to tackle it?
Yep.
All right, let's do the exclusive rights free agents.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know what this is it's really nothing. It's basically saying the Steelers own the rights to offer you a league minimum deal, and you can't take anything anywhere else unless the Steelers say, no, thank you. Yep. That's what it means.
Unless they don't want to give you a league minimum deal.
Unless they don't want to even do that exclusive rights free agents. You don't have any right to go anywhere or anything until the Steelers, they don't have to release you. They just have to not offer you a contract. So, and the thing is, you don't even have any negotiation with your salary. So it's basically the Steelers. It's all up to the Steelers and not about the players. You ready for those? I even have the number of games they started in 2020 with each player. So let's go the one that started the most games. Okay. And the question could be, was there any reason to not bring these guys back? Are you ready? 7-game starter, linebacker Robert Spillane.
Oh, no reason to not bring him back.
It's great that he's still just an exclusive rights free agent.
Sure is.
Because what that means now is that next year they would be a restricted free agent. Okay? So there's that. Hassenauer. J.C. Hassenauer started 4 games at center. You don't know what's going on with Marquise Pouncey. There was the report that he is, and this was Jerry Duloc again, that he is informing teammates that he was planning on retiring, but there's still an option for them to talk him out of it. If not, Hassenauer is your only center. So for that reason,
I'd do it anyway. You just keep him because he's your center. He can back up other spots on the line. You basically get him for a league minimum deal. Why would you not?
He would be the kind of guy that you want to keep around as your reserve center if there's no Marquise Pouncey.
Correct.
And if there is Marquise Pouncey, then you probably aren't going to keep him around as your reserve center, except maybe on the practice squad. People are like, well, what are you talking about? Because the Steelers need to address that position, either in free agency or the draft. I'm saying most likely it's going to be the draft, that you would hope that Hassenauer wouldn't have to start. It would have to be whoever they would draft. Or if Pouncey's back, then this person's going to be the person that's right there with them. And then we even see how that goes. But there's J.C. Hassenauer. No reason to cut loose from him, right?
Nope.
Last one, started 2 games, filled in when the Steelers were really thin at the position. I would say strong safety, but it turned into linebacker Marcus Allen.
Oh, absolutely. He comes back.
Yeah, he comes back too.
Yep.
So these are all, to me, 3 guys that are, 2 guys that are depth guys, and 1 guy that you seriously have to ask. Let's take a second. Was Spillane so cheap and Devin Bush coming back, do you see a linebacker tandem of Spillane and Bush?
You could, yes.
So that's very interesting because we talked about Vince Williams last week and everything. He's not an enormous.
He's not an enormous savings.
Yes, I think it's $4 million for
somewhere around there
for Vince. So, but I'm just saying, if you want to have your best guys out there, that's a very good possibility, and that's up for the Steelers to decide.
Sure.
And I would be okay with the rotation of, you have Devin Bush out there, and then you have Vince Williams in your big running packages, because Spillane is more of the pass defense linebacker. I could see them doing that with Bush being the pretty much every down guy. That would be interesting. Avery Williamson, we'll get to him here shortly.
Yep.
Okay, because he's on the other list. Let's look at the restricted free agents. You have to offer these guys a tender. It's either was it first round, second round, or original round. Based on this, we have the one game started by Ola Adeniyi, restricted free agents. What are you thinking there?
What tender am I putting on him?
Yeah,
what was he drafted originally?
He wasn't.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You would just be giving him. Let's see if I can find this of what the tenders are. I might be able to tell what the tenders were for last year, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm almost leaning towards letting him see what he can get.
Yeah, because that might be a little bit more than what you want to do. Okay, yeah. So these are the projected tenders. First round is going to be you don't get it. It would be an original round. It would be $2.24 million for Ola.
Okay.
Do you think the Steelers do 2.24? I don't either. I don't know that they're going to do that one. So it's not that he's not a good player. I just don't know that he's $2.24 million. They'd be better off signing him to another deal. I don't know if he does that. It might just have to be that you just need to add depth in other places at that position, because that's what he is for you now. He's depth in his special teams.
Yep.
The other one technically started 2 games, but is more of a position that's not starter, is one Ray McLeod.
What was his original?
I'm trying to remember. You know what? I'm gonna have to see if I can find it. Some people might have it in the live chat before I could even find it. But I know he was 6th round. I was going to say, but he was a 6th round pick in 2018 of the Bills. So if someone were to sign him, that's what the Steelers would get in compensation, is that team's 6th round pick. But the question is, do you want to pay Ray $2.24 million? I want to keep him, but I don't know if I want to keep him for 2.24.
Yeah, same here. I'd almost let him hit the market, see if he could get that. And if not, then you could sign him back.
Yeah. Because remember, you could give him a first round tender, but then you're paying him $4.8 million. Because remember, last year the Steelers did 2nd round tenders on Mike Hilton and Matt Filer.
Right.
Okay. Look at the starts and everything you got from Hilton and Filer.
Right.
Is that really what you're going to be getting from?
No, definitely not worth it.
Yeah. So the thing is, they're like, well, some people were asking the live chat, well, isn't that an important position? Yeah. But is it too, think about it. I wasn't happy that the Steelers paid $1.5 million for their long snapper when they didn't need to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'd rather these guys be on some of these guys, because the Steelers gave a chance. I could see them giving them a little bit more than the league minimum, but I don't know if they're going to do the RFA tender, because they can still sign them. They would just be a free agent.
Correct. So, just they would get the chance to go through free agency.
Yes. So exclusive rights.
If they sign with somebody else, the Steelers get nothing in return.
They get nothing in return.
But
because they didn't offer the tender. So so you agree the three exclusive rights guys definitely make sense to sign them. The restricted free agents guys, I think it's going to be a little bit more than what the Steelers are going to want to pay for both of them.
I agree.
So
to do it.
We will start off with them in the second half to say, hey, because once they're not an RFA, they're a UFA, which is your unrestricted free agents. Right. So we'll add that. We won't start with them. We'll throw them at the bottom of the list. Okay. Yeah. So if you're listening on the audio side, go ahead and flip on over to part 2. And if you're here in YouTube or Facebook, we'll be back in just a few moments to break down these unrestricted free agents. So we'll be right back. And we are back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with the episode, your regular Tuesday night episode of the Scho Bro Show. I am Dave Schofield, still here with my big brother, Rich. Rich, you still doing good?
Don't be shy, boy.
I'm doing great, man. We're having fun. We're talking Steelers. I don't know. I find having to talk all these personnel things and raw stuff, man. I enjoy talking about it, but it's kind of, it's a little stressful.
Yeah.
It's not easy, if you're sitting in a position where when you're dealing with people. Yeah. And believe it or not, that's what I do for a living. I deal with people, but it's still not always easy.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like saying that, Ray McLeod isn't worth a restricted free agent tender, because Ray McLeod brought some value, especially early in the season. He got shaken a little bit there at times, but really had some great value for the Steelers. But the question is, I mean, do you really want to sign Ray? I mean, think about this. If the Steelers don't bring back one of the guys on my list, that rhymes with Shoo, okay? If they don't bring him back, but they sign Ray for the tender, he's the highest paid receiver, because he's getting the tender, right? And that's why I say that it's something that makes it tough to do. You're better off letting him hit unrestricted free agency and then see what you can get him for. So let's hit this list. We're going to go through these guys one by one, and we're going to go through alphabetically, because that's how I found the list, and that's how we're going to go through it. Now, I had an article today. Was it today? Yes, it was today. That was breaking down how this is a very interesting, Steeler fans are very uneasy this offseason because we're in a situation we've never been in before. And I call it the trifecta of doom. I should have said that in the article, but I didn't. And
you didn't say that in the article, but that would have been a good line.
That would have been. I just thought of it. I wish I would have thought of it when I was writing the article. So it's kind of the trifecta of doom. Okay, one, you've got coaching turnover. Not that that's a bad thing. That's a good thing in this case, but you still have it. Two, you have more uncertainty at the quarterback position this year than you've had in a long time. You're like, last year was how will Ben play? It was never a question of, is Ben good enough to still, it was about the injury and everything there. A few years ago, it was Ben hitting at retirement, where you're like, as long as Ben plays, we have Ben. But if Ben doesn't play, then it's one of those things. This year is kind of a combination of those things. Will he retire? And how well could he even come back and perform? Because although, remember, he had a fantastic year to start, and it was kind of falling off, and has Ben the right guy for what they want to do with the offense with the new coaches? That's a lot of good questions. So that was the second part of the trifecta of doom. And the third part was how many free agents the Steelers have. Because I even look back, and when Coach Tomlin came in 2007, the Steelers did not have any significant free agent losses that year. They didn't even get a comp pick the following year because of stuff. So they didn't have significant free agent loss when you had a big turnover in coaches. So then let's look back at the big turnover in quarterback when Ben came in 2004. You even had new coaches. You had Wisenhunt coming in for the first year and some things like that. Once again, you didn't have the big free agent losses. No big name person that was gone, and no compensatory draft picks the following year. So this is really the first year of coaching change. Might not change anything at the quarterback, but a lot of fans are now thinking it's time to change. And you got a lot of free agents. So, any thoughts on that before we dive into this?
No, bring them at me. I'm ready. Wait. No, I do have something.
Okay.
All right. People have to understand that as we start to look and talk about this, we have to go back that you and I are having to think about this with what became our favorite saying last spring and summer.
With what money?
With what money?
It's not that there's not money.
No.
You then, if you're going to gain money, you're going to have to lose it another way. You know,
correct.
The question is like, do you want to extend somebody like a David DeCastro? Do you want to extend a Ben Roethlisberger, or do you want to release him? You can find the money. Right. The question is, in what way? What's the trade-off to get it? Because we learned they can find a way.
I know there will be some on this list that I will say, yes, they re-sign them if they can find the money.
Yeah. So what I wanted to bring up, in case we needed to look at it as all, is let's say what these players were last year, if you know what I mean, and everything. So let's go ahead and hit the list. 10 starts last year. Tyson Alualu. He's getting up there. Was he 32 or 33 now? He's over 30. Lots of years in the league. Last year his base salary was only $2.75 million. That's how much he made last year for the Steelers. So the question is, he had, I think, the best season of his career playing nose tackle for the Steelers. Do you see if you can bring Alualu back?
If you can get a very team-friendly deal, yes.
Yeah. So you're talking something like he would have, the $1 million minimum salary and maybe a $3 or $4 million, like a $3 million signing bonus, which is already going to have him making more than what he made last year. And and if you do it for 2 years, then that just kicks into the next year, half of the, $1.5 million, and then whatever his base would be that year. I could see a 2-year deal for him. It's something like that. Would you do it if he was getting a significant pay increase?
No,
because of his age more than anything. I thought he played great last year. So that's just one of those things. So that was a good one. Okay. Next, one start, unfortunately, Zach Banner. Zach Banner last year. Let's see. I got to find the injured reserve list.
No, you don't even have to tell. I already know what I want to say about Zach Banner.
Yeah,
I have a feeling Zach Banner comes back as a Steeler, does another 1 year prove it deal because he didn't get to do it last year.
Yes.
I have a feeling he comes back on a very, very Steeler friendly deal where he bets on himself because he is not going to demand big money out there because of the injury.
Yeah. I mean, he played pretty good. It was a great job earning the spot, and he was ready to roll. It's really hard to gauge on not quite one full game. He was $1.75 million last year. I could see that being around the same number, maybe a little bit more since he did win the camp battle, but something like that they're not going to have to pay like big veteran money. And he did put on his Twitter account best exit interview ever, which makes me kind of be like, hey, let's do this again next year. So yeah.
And he's a young enough guy where he can go ahead and bet on himself for the 1 year again.
Yes, I like it. All right, you ready? Here's someone that wouldn't have been an unrestricted free agent, but got signed back for a 1-year deal. No starts because he doesn't start. One punter, Jordan Berry. You bringing Barry back?
Probably not.
Mm-hmm. You don't
probably not bringing him back.
Yeah. So I'm offering him the minimum. That's what I said. I'll offer him the minimum. If he wants to go out and try to see if he can make more, he can. If not, go find a different minimum guy.
Yep, exactly.
So, I mean, he did well when he came back. So that's why I say offer him the minimum, let him come to camp. Because guess what? If you end up not keeping him, unless you give him some signing bonus, it's not going to be much dead money to let him go.
Yeah,
But that's what
right.
that's what I say. I like the minimum.
Yeah, you give him the minimum and let him go because he was off the team for how many weeks, and it wasn't like anybody was saying, "Oh, hey, Jordan Berry, come punt for us."
Yeah, exactly. So say you come back minimum, you're a guy again next year, and let's some other person at the minimum. Doesn't matter. All right,
Yep.
11 starts. Played in more games. Some people are like, he missed so much time. No, he didn't. But you got to remember when it comes to offense, it all depends on what formation they start in. Okay. James Conner.
Okay.
What do you do with James Conner for next year?
He's one of he's one of the toughest ones.
Mm-hmm.
He's one that if the Steelers sign back, I think they're going to let him. He'll really get a chance to go out and really test the water.
Yeah.
And see if anybody wants him. And then the Steelers will potentially have something together to say, hey, here's what we can do. But, go see what you can get. If you can get more, you let him go.
Yeah. You're not paying him much.
No.
You're not. You're going to say, hey, so sorry, but we just don't have the room. Well, we'd like to keep you around, but you don't want to get it to where it's so bad that you give like the ultimate insulting deal like they did to Rod Woodson. But I mean, that wasn't after his rookie deal. I mean, where the Steelers offered him something that was basically an embarrassment that was actually more insulting than it would have been to offer him nothing. But that's one of those guys that says, hey, that's how it is. So chances are I don't see him back next year.
If the relationship's good with Connor, you almost say, hey, we're going to let you go hit free agency. Yeah. If you want to go find a deal, you go find a deal. And then if you want to come back and say, hey, I would play for you all for this deal or maybe even a little less than whatever, then you could consider it. But other than that, you let him go.
Yep. Like Ezra said, he was pretty much healthy this year. He got injured in week 1 and missed, only had a few carries, then got hurt. And it was just the COVID related stuff, I do believe.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And like people, like we said with Stephon Tuitt, who missed time with COVID, people are like, oh, they missed so much time, injury. I'm not counting COVID as missed time because of injury. You just can't do it. 2020 was just not one of those times to do it. Next, no starts, but your special teams captain, Jordan Dangerfield.
I have a feeling he's another one they'll try to get done, but they'll try to get him done on a pretty nice deal.
Yep.
But if he really, unless some other team swoops in and just offers him maybe, a chance to start somewhere, but I don't really see that happening either.
Nope. Love what he brings to special teams. Love the knowledge that he has. He's a good teammate. Pay him the minimum. If
he can fill in the secondary here and there a little bit, but I wouldn't want to rely on him as a full-time starter.
Yep. But if anything else, you offer him, an extra, I don't know, $75,000 signing bonus or something like that, or a little bit, slightly more than the minimum if you have to. But you're not looking. If you bring him back, you're not looking to break the bank. The whole reason I brought up my article earlier that I had today was I said this. I'm like, the Steelers can sign some of their free agents. They have to decide, do they want to sign a bunch of guys towards the bottom or do they want to sign several guys towards the top?
Right.
And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So next one, Josh Dobbs. He's an unrestricted free agent.
He's another one that's probably going to be go see if anybody wants you.
I think I have an answer for this one.
Okay.
They do not sign Josh Dobbs. And when training camp rolls around, if nobody has him, then they bring him into camp.
Bring him into camp.
That's my opinion. That's not someone that you're going to see sign right now, but that's just kind of how it works. Sound good?
Yeah. That's actually pretty good.
Here, we might run out of time for the show for the next one. 11 starts. Alvin Bud Dupree.
He's gone.
I just don't see how they can afford him. I mean, the only way I see him coming back to Pittsburgh is if he goes out. Now, I'm going to say this with a disclaimer because I said this in the preview. My time's all messed up. A couple weeks ago, I said if I was a free agent hitting the market this year, unless teams are wanting to give me the big signing bonus to make my salary cap hit very low this year, I might be tempted to only sign a 1-year deal and wait for the salary cap to recover. Because these guys that are going out there and all these teams are dealing with the lower cap, it's going to drive these salaries down. They're just not going to be able to afford them. And like Bud would not be one of those guys, except for the injury. That's what it's going to come down to. I could see the only way I see Bud Dupree back with the Steelers next year. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I'm just saying, if this is just me, is if he hits free agency and because of the injury and the cap, he's not getting anywhere close to what he thinks he would. And then that's when they go back to the Steelers and say, hey, no, you can't offer me much now. We'll either sign the deal that's very low now and pays me more later, or I'll give you a very team-friendly 1-year deal so I can go out and prove it again to everybody else. And then I can see if I can break the bank again. That's the only way I really see it going down.
Yeah.
There's got to be no market for him. I think there will be a market for him.
I doubt it goes down that way, but that would be the only way.
That's my opinion. So that's why I don't think they're going to have him anymore. I know a lot of people talk about the defense and what happened after Bud Dupree went out. I think it was just a combination of familiarity because, Highsmith did not play bad at all. I thought he played fantastic. And he did exactly what we said. Come in, be the rotational guy, show the Steelers what you can do so that way they know if they move on from Dupree, how high they would, if they would have to use another high draft pick on outside linebacker. If there's no Bud Dupree, are the Steelers using a high draft pick on outside linebacker this year?
No.
Not same in my opinion. Although my first mock draft Monday I had options, and one of them wasn't. These aren't my picks. I sometimes think it's funny just to put people out there that this is what other, national talking head people think the Steelers are going to draft. Because sometimes I almost do it because I think it's funny. So I tried to do a more realistic one this week. It was an offensive lineman from Northern Iowa. But now I kind of lost where I was going. So I think Highsmith did the job.
Yep.
So I think the Steelers are okay if they don't have Dupree. Do I think Bud Dupree would make them better? Yeah, they would. Yeah. No knock on Highsmith. I still think he could get the job done. I'd much rather see the three of them rotate, than to be, oh no, what are they going to do after that? Any last thoughts on Bud?
No, I just really doubt he's in a Steeler uniform next year.
Yeah. I just think other people are going to see too much value in him.
Yep.
So if he doesn't come back, I hope he gets a monster deal and the Steelers get a good draft pick with the compensatory, which I have a compensatory article coming out tomorrow updating for this coming year. So keep your eye out for that, unless breaking news pushes it all back. Next up, same position, J. Roan Elliott.
Yeah, I doubt he's back.
I'm going to give the same answer as Dobbs.
Yep.
Anyone else wants to go sign him? They'll say, we'll offer him the minimum if he wants to stay. If he doesn't take it, then you could always offer him the minimum in camp, like they did this year. He didn't even come into camp until partway through the year.
Right.
So that's what I think's going on there. That's easy. Move on. Here you go. This is one of the third most starts out of anybody on this list. Oh yeah, he did miss some time. Did he? Why do I only have 13? Okay. Matt Filer. Yeah, he did. He did miss the time.
Yes, he did.
I forgot about that when he was on IR. Filer.
He's the one. He's the one I really don't know about.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, this is just
this. The Steelers like to go into the draft not having to draft anything. If that's their philosophy, then they try to get Filer back. I don't know that his play at guard this past season, like if you saw Jeffries in my Vertex today, it had some stuff that talked about how Pouncey did much better playing next to Dotson than he did Filer.
Yeah.
I don't know that Filer's a guy that you want to bring back. I mean, he second round tender last year. It was what, 3.44 million. Would you even want to pay him that much this year?
No.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
I don't know either.
would.
So I think he's a guy that they're just going to have to let test the waters unless he comes to the Steelers and say, I don't want to play anywhere else.
Sure.
I mean, you're not even going to pay him what BJ Finney got. Finney
Right.
got on average, what was it, 4 million, 8 million for 2 years is what he ended up getting. I don't see them doing that. I mean, maybe, maybe you could offer him 9 for 3 years, maybe something. I mean, you could offer him something friendly like that to where it wouldn't cost much this year. I just don't know. I just don't know that they will. So I think that's a stumper for us, right?
Yeah, just as much as I'd like to keep around, I'm just not sure that you're going to.
Yeah, because in a perfect world, he's the guy that you just plug in at whatever spot you're weakest at, which is sad because 2 years ago, meaning 2019, he was dubbed their best lineman. So, yeah, so that's what it'll come down to. Sticking with the offensive line, Gerald Hawkins, drafted by the Steelers, traded by the Steelers, signed off Houston's practice squad this season by the Steelers. Basically, extra tight end guy.
I'm almost leaning towards the whole Dobbs, and
I agree. Offer the minimum. If they don't want to take it, see if they're around during training camp and are looking for a place to play.
Yep.
So, agreed. And if they want to get more somewhere else, more power to them. Okay. Here's another tough one. Only 6 starts because it all depends on what defense you're in. Mike Hilton.
Man, he's a tough one because, see, you got to tie him to the other one. Can't we just talk about them both?
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it up. We'll skip ahead and we'll bring it in here. And then when we get to him, we'll just mention it briefly. Cam Sutton also had 6 starts.
Yep.
Any way you keep them both?
I don't know if there's any way you can keep them both. I think it's going to be one or the other. That's why I wanted you to bring it up.
Yes.
And I'm not sure which one. I really did like Sutton on the, Sutton showed that he could play on the outside. Okay. But I think you end up with one of the two. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah. I've got a follow-up question on this one. I think you try to keep one of the two. Here's the thing. I don't know. I'm gonna probably make some people mad. I don't know that there's as big of a market for Mike Hilton as what people think. I know slot corners are making a lot of money, but Mike Hilton is a very different slot corner
yes, he is.
than anybody else out there. And I don't know how well Hilton's going to work outside of the Steelers. So therefore, I mean, you don't want to overpay as the Steelers because other people aren't. And if someone else thinks they want to try to use him like that, but Hilton is not a great cover guy. And what do you need to do?
So it's right. So I'm almost like you. I see a lot of people on the live chat saying,
I'm trying to keep up.
Sign Hilton, a lot of this. But is it a better strategy to go ahead and get Sutton and then see where things go with Hilton?
Yeah. I like what Ryan O'Toole said. He said, gotta try to keep Hilton, that you at least do something to try to keep him. But I don't know. A lot of this also depends on what your decisions are with Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson and their big contracts.
Right. If one of the two of them go, then I think you got to keep.
I think you got to keep Sutton.
Correct.
And that's the thing. The Steelers were utilizing Mike Hilton in a way that when you don't, I mean, he's basically like another linebacker. And basically, when he wasn't available, their defense was not the same. But you can't use him as the typical slot corner. So
Right.
are other teams going to look to use him the way the Steelers did, or are they looking for a typical slot corner? I don't know.
Right. You know, he covered short patterns and he blitzed.
Yeah, and he was extremely good at it.
And if they could get him trying to cover on a deep pattern, it was obvious that he wasn't great.
Yeah, I like that term, Lumberzack 94. He says he's a slot backer.
Yeah,
that's what he is. That's what he is. And I like him. I like what he can do. I don't think the Steelers have anyone else that can do what he does. I just don't know that they can afford to keep him with what they're paying at the position otherwise. And he's never going to be an answer at outside corner. He's only going to be in that role where Cam Sutton can play any of those roles.
Correct.
That's the tough decision. So I don't think we even have an answer for this. I have a follow-up.
But I really wanted the two together because I really feel in some ways they're linked.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
Exactly. Here's my question. If they lose both players, I know we don't want to hear this, Steelers Nation, but I'm asking because I think this is a good thing to think about. If the Steelers lose both players, who gets the bigger deal?
Of the two of them?
Yeah.
Sutton.
I think if they lose them both, I wouldn't be shocked if Hilton would get the bigger deal because he's known as the slot corner, but Sutton would actually have a better chance outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's a good. I don't know if that'd be right or not. I'm just throwing it out there. Some are saying Sutton, some are playing Hilton. GS says nobody. Let's work some magic and keep them both. So there's not a good answer to this. It's a tough question that the Steelers have to do. Let's roll on because we still got some more of these. I don't know. We'll get to other questions this week. I might just have to throw a question like I did last week out to the live chat at the end, like I did. Danny Isadora.
Who?
Saying who? The guy they signed off with the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad on the line. Hey, he's in Pittsburgh. Offer him a minimum to come to camp. Some of these guys are basically almost getting like futures contracts, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But it's a little bit more because their years of service could be more than what those would be. That's what I say with him. And I wouldn't be shocked. Here's another one very similar. Cassius Marsh.
Man, I like the guy's motor when he was in there. Just didn't see a whole lot of him.
Yeah. Yep. Liked him more on special teams. Not that he was terrible. I mean, think about that. The Steelers had to play Cassius Marsh a bunch on defense in the playoffs, I mean, it's not like it's handing the ball off to, was it Ben Tate that they signed off the street to come into the playoff game the one year?
Yeah.
When they're dealing with injury. But I think he's another minimum guy.
You got to what Felicia says. Bye, Felicia. Yeah.
Only coming from Felicia is that great? Hey, Felicia. Okay. So that's a guy that I could see at the Steelers, but it's not someone you want to pay more.
Another guy may be a camp body.
Yeah. Yes. Another one to discuss. 14 starts for Juju Smith-Schuster.
I'd love to bring him back. But we can't pay him like we did Mr. Third and Fifth.
But look, Mr. Third and Fifth and Hines Ward are the only receivers that got second deals. The Steelers don't sign their receivers to second deals very often, unless you're that transcendent guy. I just think he's going to bring too much on the open market.
That's what I worry about. Yes.
Yeah. And that's the problem, because why would someone play in Pittsburgh for $8 million when they could go somewhere else and make 14? And I mean, some people are already projecting 17 million a season for the Jets. So I could see them taking someone like Juju, one of these teams that's going to have a lot of space. It's a high profile position and a high profile name. I could see it. I don't want to see it. But from the notion of I like the young wide receiver group, but I just don't think they can keep that one together. So, yeah. And then a lot of people didn't like the dates on the logos and stuff either. So, but I wouldn't be shocked to see if they at least try. But hey, the Steelers,
they'll try, but you're right. It's less than 50% chance he's back.
The Steelers made a decent offer apparently last year to Javon Hargrave. It just wasn't enough to keep him from getting the money that he got in Philly.
Yeah.
So I could see that happening in there, but chances are, I just think he's going to get too much else. He can get too much elsewhere. We already talked about Cam Sutton, so we're just going to leave it at that. We've got 3 left. Only player on the list to start every game in 2020. You know who it is? I'll tell you this. I was going to maybe do this for my trivia on Thursday, but I'm not. He's also the only player for the Steelers that played, and I mean, it doesn't count. I mean, special teams doesn't count, or on either offense or defense, that played every snap on the season. One player played every snap.
Hold on, man. One player played every snap on the season. Oh, that would be Big Al.
That would be Alejandro Villanueva.
Yeah.
What are you doing with Big Al?
I wish I was sitting in his exit interview.
Yeah.
I would have, This would be easier if I knew what went on inside that exit interview.
Remember, when we had Zach Banner on the offseason, he's like, Al's not going to play forever. So there's, Banner and Chooks are great friends. So they were thinking there's going to be a time where we can both be playing. My question is, does Big Al know he's got no rush to retire because he's not holding the Steelers up from anything because he's not under contract?
Right.
Does he know that he's not playing anymore? And I'm wondering if he's waiting to see if other people are playing before he even thinks about what he does. They had him on, was it PFF's? I think so. Did their top 50 free agents. Mm-hmm. They had him ranked higher than Juju. They had him at 21 because they say, he's older. You just don't get starting left tackles in free agency.
That's true.
So, and it's so funny because everyone's like, oh, you did. He was the highest rated, not just the highest rated offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm pretty sure by PFF. If I could remember when I said it on the preview, he was the highest rated offensive player for the Steelers this past season. I'll tell you if I was right or not. No, he was the 3rd highest. He was the highest lineman. He was the 3rd highest because the 2 players that were ranked just above him was Chase Claypool was the highest ranked offensive player by PFF for the Steelers. And number 2 was Mason Rudolph. And then it was Big Al. And then it was Deontay Johnson. So that's the deal with Al. He doesn't have the wear and tear of the NFL on his body, but he did have wear and tear of the military on his body. So
he's I wish I knew kind of what he was thinking right now.
Yeah.
He would be the first to tell you he did not play did not play as well this season. I don't think he'd be like, hey, you were you weren't quite at the same level you were at the year before.
Yeah.
He'd probably tell you, yeah, that's true. I'm just didn't seem right.
But you're like, well, how many sacks did he allow? As Ryan O'Toole was asking, not many. Well, the Steelers didn't give up many. The Steelers gave up the fewest amount of sacks, and he's got generally the hardest assignment. Now, they also. Something that Jeffrey Benedict likes to bring up is he's not the easiest guy to play next to just because he's a different style. And that was something that took filers from getting used to and things like that. Ramon Foster was a great guy to play next to him. So I don't know what to do with Al. I say if I had to bet right now, I'm saying he's probably played his last game with the Steelers and may have very well played his last game in the NFL. He might just call it.
Very possible.
So he's not a stellar left tackle. He's an adequate left tackle. Done a great job. I mean, this year, what a find though. You got to admit, what a find.
He was, the year he basically broke in with the Steelers was the year Kyle and I used your season tickets to go to the preseason game against Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I remember seeing him in person for the first time. And I just said to Kyle, whoa, that's a big dude.
Yep.
I mean, not big as in hulky, but he was just so tall. Like he just dwarfed other guys in the huddle.
Yep. We'll say this, and then I'm going to say something about what you said about dwarfing in the huddle. He says Banner Chooks are just, this is what Donald Nolan says, are just younger, cheaper, faster options with similar play. You can't disagree with that. Love what he did. When you said dwarfed him in the huddle, you know what I think of? The old school footage of Andy Reid when he was doing the punt pass kick, and he was this huge kid out there next to all these other little kids. Well, that was Big Al to everybody else.
Well, look, it also didn't help the fact that when the Steelers were getting in the huddle for that game, he was not standing near 6'5" Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, but standing by much shorter than that Michael Vick.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, Big Al, it just might be, 33 too far along. Chances are it's probably not going to happen because if he did want to play, he could probably make more money somewhere else.
We've
got two left. Avery Williamson. 4 starts. Acquired via trade. Came in. Good thing they had him at times because he was like the only linebacker they had for a couple games.
I think for him it really comes down to what else is going on at the position.
Yeah.
If something would happen that the Steelers would part ways with Vince Williams, then maybe you see Avery Williamson instead. Maybe they use the savings that they would get off of V. Will to give to A. Williams.
Yep.
I'm not going out and breaking the bank on the guy.
I don't know, but the Steelers wanted to sign him when he was a free agent the last time, and he went with the Jets.
Right.
I just don't know what they could afford. If they could afford to keep him around cheap, that would be great, but I don't know that they can. So he's probably gone. But for what they did, that wasn't even a draft pick this draft. It's the following year. Okay, right. So I understand what they did there. Last one started in week 16. Steelers gave up their 5th round pick in this coming draft, but gained another 7th round pick in doing so. Chris Wormley.
I just don't think that we got much out of him.
Yeah,
I like the guy, but something just didn't seem right. I would say he's probably done as a Steeler.
Yeah.
Especially if we can re-sign Alu.
And not, I would take Alu.
I really expected Wormley to come in and get to play some more nose tackle, but really,
was on IR. He said he would need to bulk up to play nose tackle when we interviewed him. Don't know what that was, but if he leaves and he signs somewhere for a decent bit, he would count towards the Steelers comp.
Yeah,
rather than the Ravens now. So we don't have much time left. We're not going to be able to do questions this week. I'm really sorry. We're going to make sure we have time next week. But we kind of dove into some of these pretty good.
That you were long-winded at the beginning of the show.
I was. I know. Well, because I was like, I don't know how much we have to talk to. But like some people are saying, the Steelers kept an extra defensive lineman for most of the year. So it's not like they don't have people that could play there. Mondu over Wormley. There you go, Donald.
Good point.
Yeah. So you have guys that you're going to have around. You're going to, you got Bugs, Davis, Mondu to go along with Tuitt and
Hayward.
The only question is, do you get Alu back or not? It's going to be crazy. So I'm going to ask you this question. Then I'm going to ask the live chat for them to do this. No explanation. I'm only going to read it. One name one name from this list that you personally want to see signed, that you think the Steelers will sign from these undrafted free agents, unrestricted free agents. We're going to go ahead and throw in Denier and McLeod because we don't think they'll get tenders. We think they'll end up being unrestricted free agents. Who's your one guy?
I mean, are we just talking perfect world here, or are we, or do we think it's possible?
If you are answering in the live chat now, you will not be brought up on the screen. You need to wait for me to put it out there.
I'm saying, yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Who's yours?
You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to blow your mind because I'm thinking who saves good, who won't cost much, and will still offer something. If I had to pick one, I'd love to say Juju. I'd love to say one of the corners. I'd love to say Bud. I'm going to say the most realistic, especially if I'm going to bet and say that this is almost bad. I'm going to say Tyson Alualu.
Yeah, I bet that's a good pick because he was somebody I was considering too because I really like the way he played this year. And I think he's got another year or two of that.
They're chomping at the bit in the live chat.
Put it up there. I'll go. I like yours. Either that or if we can get Mike Hilton cheap enough, I would love to keep Hilton.
There you go. So for everyone that put it in before you now see my comment out there, now I'll look at him. If it doesn't, if it's more than just a name, I'm not going to bring it up. So we'll get Cree. He says Mike Hilton. Okay. Steelers Pittsburgh is Juju. John says Bud. Donald Nolan says Bud. GS says Juju. Steeler Chick 46 says Hilton. Chad says Spillane, but he's exclusive rights, so we don't have to worry about him.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if Kyle's was an answer or not. So
it is. It was. Banner.
Yeah.
Uncle Grease.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Dusk Thunder says Mike Hilton. Reginald says Sutton. I knew Jeffries. He said the man, Mike Hilton. I know I told him he had to just say a name, but because he's on staff, he gets 2 extra words. Okay. Gyro says Juju. Lifelong fan says Bud. Derwin says Big Al. That's interesting. Mark says Dupree. I'll say this one. I skipped. Javier says Hilton. Felicia says Hilton. Lumberzack says Sutton.
Hold on. There was too much in there, Thaddeus, but I do like your thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Because he had said, yeah, I got you. Yeah. Ben Harris says Juju. Lifelong says Dupree. And I'm skipping again because you guys are going out there. I don't know. Should I bring up Ezra's that says it says Mike Hilton? Mr. Bergland says did I say that? I don't know. It says Sutton. Let's see. Chad said Sutton. We're getting a lot of people saying other stuff. Tyler W says Dupree. It's funny. Perfect world was Dupree. I just don't see how they can afford it. Yeah, that's why I'm not going with Dupree because I really, him and Juju, I don't know that it's realistic. I think it's possible, but I just don't think it's likely. Does that make sense? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah. It's just.
Yeah.
I want to see him in black and gold, but I just don't think there's any way we're going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, Turk says Bud. John says Bud. Turk, I think he already said he got him again and said Bud. Sorry. No, Dwayne says Sutton. Did we get Rhino O'Toole that says Connor? Interesting.
Okay.
I keep getting.
All right, I gotta laugh. I gotta laugh at I gotta laugh at Occam's Ox.
Yeah, Occam's Ox. He says JJ Watt.
JJ Watt. That's hilarious.
That's funny. But yeah, that's a lot. Thank you all. We always like to do something like that. If we don't get the questions, we're going to do like we did with scores, and we're going to get something like that.
Just to rapid fire.
We do rapid fire thing. It's kind of the thing that we do. But
I'd say in the coming weeks, we're slowly going to be able to slip into doing more of those questions like we were able to last off season. I think it's just going to take us a couple weeks to get there.
Exactly. So now, with the restricted free agents of adding Adenier and McLeod, that we say that we think will go to be unrestricted free agents because they won't be offered a tender. Yep. That's 21. Over under. People can put that out there, but I'm not going to be bringing it up. Over under. They bring back 10.
No, I knew that's the number you were going to say.
Because you know why? That's the number I'd have picked.
So, I know. You couldn't give me 10.5, so I could pick 10.
So, over under 10.
Can I give a good Dave answer?
Sure. I'm going to give a Dave answer.
If we do not get back one Alvin Bud Dupree or Juju Smith-Schuster, it will be over.
Okay. But if you get one of them, it's got to make it go under.
It's going to be under.
Yes. That I completely understand. You know what I'm going to say? If you count even bringing in during training camp before week 1 of next season, I'm going to go over because I think there's some guys in this list that you could see back with the Steelers, but not going to be right away.
Yeah, we could get to 9 and then see a couple back in there during camp.
So very interesting. Very interesting. Lots of fun here. Lots of fun the second half. Sorry, I was trying to fill up more time in the first half in order to do that, and then we ended up taking a lot of time with these because they're fun. They're good. It's a lot to talk about. So, anything you want to say here before I mean, I could give the quick rundown. Make sure you're tuning in BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, and make sure you're checking out all the podcasts, not just on YouTube and that are live on Facebook, but also the ones that are on our audio-only podcast platform, which also has these on there as well. They're all on the audio platform. Any final thoughts, Rich, before we head out of here?
Just water. Someone asked what was in the cup.
What's in the cup? Water. Okay, water's in the cup.
I had a very tickly, scratchy throat today, so I've had to have much water.
There you go. So, hey, we'll next week we'll be back. Don't know what our topic is. Not going to be able to set you up like we did this past week. We're going to see what else is covered on other shows. Hopefully have lots of good stuff to talk about, but it'll still be Tuesday night, 9:00. Two brothers sharing their talk about Steelers.
Can't wait.